Your, Sanctuary in the Jungle, right, is what the podcast is called. And a lot of what we've been talking about is what I think how your firm creates a sanctuary there for our clients. I talked about it with our first guest, Professor Michelle Levine, about how we need to get the story from our client, right? How much of that is also related to just language? You said you have different people in your office who speak Spanish,
right?
I've heard you use many times the word translation just in conversation that just, I was like, I don't normally hear that word. So what is it about language translation that you think helps you guys make a sanctuary there at your office?
Well, language that we use, if it's a different language like Spanish, which we're able to use, right? And I'll jump in with Marcus or Dagmar, our legal assistant speaks Spanish, jump in with my own Spanish, I'll jump in enough to let the client know I can understand, what's going on when you're talking, and add my own 2 cents is certainly one way that Spanish-speaking clients feel more comfortable. That's just obvious, right? For obvious reasons.
Because it's not, it might be, but sometimes it's not. I mean, I only speak one language, so it's one thing for me to speak to them in their language, but it's another for me to let them speak in their language so they can use the words that are best for them. Can you tell us about that?
100%. I mean, they tell us things in Spanish. Marcus will explain things to me, or I'll pick up. Just those nuanced differences in languages that make you realize the thing they're talking about a little bit better. They can put it into their own words in their own language. Language is like that. There's words in other languages that we don't have a word for, right? And there's ways to use words. Like in Italian, a ragazzo is a boy, but a ragazzaccio is a bad boy. And you could add accio to any word and make it a bad thing of that noun. Which is great, right? And if you bother to use, but if you bother to explain it that way, it means something very different to an Italian, right? An Italian would do what I'm doing as a matter of fact with their hand. So language is really important, but let's talk about English, right? I think we create a sanctuary for our Spanish-speaking clients because they are immediately more trusting of the environment they're in if there is proficiency in their language at that law office during this crisis. We're crisis management.
Yeah, I love that about your firms, right? that you put that in your title.
Criminal defense crisis management, Our job at the end of the day is not to go to trial. I'm not saying our job is to avoid a trial. What I'm saying is what we sell to people, what we bring to people, whether we're public defenders or private attorneys, is creating a better outcome from a bad situation.
Yeah.
Our clients come to us in crisis, and they need to leave our offices less in crisis, right? Whether that's from the first meeting because they feel better about having the advocate that they have, or about the outcome. We create positive outcomes to difficult situations, right? And so I'm not selling, thinking with my marketing brain again, I like to think I'm fairly proficient at trials, right? But I'm not selling clients my trial. They don't care if they're avoiding prison, whether they avoided it because I went to trial or because I negotiated an outcome that avoided prison, right? They care about, can you deliver me to the place that I need to be delivered to? Returning to my family, not going to prison, avoiding a felony conviction.
Yeah.
And this is from simple drunk driving cases to the most complex cases, right?
But even we've recently been doing some marketing, and we made like a brand video, right? I thought part of it was you were in this world, something happened to you, we're going to be somebody that brings you back. As you said, return to your family.
Sure.
But a lot of what I hear you saying is you were in this world, something happened, we're going to bring you back to a better world. Because you're getting them services, you're getting them opportunities and other things. Tell me about that.
That's absolutely possible. You can, the process of responding to a crisis, right? The things that you have to do when the chips are down, right, to overcome something that put you in a position can absolutely return you to a better place. Kind of back to we become what we see. A lot of times I realize that the expectations I have for my clients are the first time they've had aspirational and positive expectations. That in itself is a new world for them and a positive experience, right? And so creating expectations to get through a crisis can also create positive steps in your life. You can get to a better place. Client services can assist that. Investigation can assist that. You want to create an environment, I think, where everybody in your office is invested in your client's success. right? Whether that's
Absolutely.
how they're greeted at the door, right? And our legal assistant, I tell them this all the time. We've had multiple assistants over the years. You're our front door. You're our front door on the phone. You're our front door when people come in. You're the first person. You are vital to our success.
Absolutely.
You're an extremely important person. You don't just answer the phone. You help bring people in the door, make them feel
introduce our culture, our environment, our
100%.
our values, our principles.
100%. And it brings me a great pride when I see reviews, either online or otherwise, where people say, that first call with Dagmar made me feel better than the 5 other calls that I placed.
Yeah.
Marcus really made me feel unjudged and like he was going to do something. And, I just think it's more rewarding to have an environment like that for the people in your firm as well, that you're dug in, you want to create success, you want to minimize damage to your clients, and you're helping each other do it.
Yeah. When you were talking about holding them to certain standards, right? There's a quote on the wall over here that actually Liesl introduced it to me, but the line that I'll just read to you is, if we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become who they are capable of becoming. That's absolutely what you just said.
Absolutely. Now, there's a piece of that I want to talk to a tiny bit, is like, you can't, in my opinion, and you shouldn't, you can't come from it from I'm in a better place than you.
Sure. There has to be no judgment.
And a realization that, that we're all human, that I'm one slippery step away from failing.
Yeah.